starting with just a couple of data points as we get started today. The Bureau of Labor Statistics has noted that as of May 2018, individuals with at least some post-secondary education held about 38% of the jobs in California. But they pointed out as well that from 2007 to 2016, jobs requiring education beyond high school increased by 5.3 million. And at the same time, occupations requiring just a high school diploma or equivalent for entry lost about 1.3 million jobs. That trend is also clearly evident in California. According to the Georgetown Center for Education and the Workforce, they estimate that 60% of all new jobs in California will require at least some education beyond high school. But California, unfortunately, ranks among the bottom 30% of all states when it comes to students going directly to college from high school. And we're lagging the national average by several percentage points. And here in Kern County, this is an especial and significant concern because Kern County baccalaureate attainment rates are roughly half of the statewide rate. So we have work to do. Just as Dorothy Donahoe inspired the California legislature to adopt a very bold and far-reaching master plan for higher education in 1960, our systems are poised, positioned, and need to revolutionize access to higher education. Really, the future success of the state and of the country depends on our creating an educational system with both the boldness and the agility needed to serve the students and our evolving 21st century economy. That means we're creating a system that increases equitable access, improves affordability, addresses preparedness, and maintains accountability for high educational quality. A system really that enables equitable access and success for students from all of California's communities. The good news is that many high schools and colleges throughout the state are actually laying the groundwork for just such a new system. So our panel is going to share some examples from institutions that have really intentionally designed systems to place college within the reach of every high school student by partnerships between K-12 and their community colleges. So I just want to briefly introduce the panel. Christian Chavez is the student trustee for the Kern Community College District. Welcome. Dr. Kristen Clark is the president of West Hills College Lemoore. Dr. Lori Bennett is the president of Clovis Community College. And Kevin Talon is the principal of Wasco High School. It's about 30 miles north of here. So we're going to start today with Christian. Christian is going to talk to us about her experience as a returning student now at Porterville College. Christian, tell us your story. How did you come back to college after leaving for a while right after high school?
Wow, yes, so I know that the focus of this panel is on pathways from high school to community college, but I have to say that that is not my story at all. I have to say that actually after high school I ended up moving down south. I lived in Los Angeles and I actually worked in the beauty industry for close to 10 years. I always had in the back of my mind that I wanted to return to school, and so I did so many times, and every single time I failed because I had my priority and my main goal back then was to provide a roof over my head, and I was self-sufficient, so I was living in my own apartment and all of that. And so I think that from that experience, I kind of like ingrained into my head that I wasn't a good student. And that really affected my self-esteem as a student. And I really did and like truly believe that I just wasn't a great student. And not to mention too that as a first-generation college student, I found it very difficult to navigate the college system. and even just like enrolling into classes and finding the right resources. Moreover, I think that because I wasn't confident in my abilities as a student, I was really anxious when I moved back to Porterville to live with my parents and start Porterville College as a full-time student. I remember that my first semester there, I had a counselor and a professor that pulled me aside and kind of talked to me about my performance. And I just remember like I started crying because I felt really, really terrible. But they also kind of pointed me into the right direction. And I feel like with all of the support and everything that they gave me, that really helped me and boosted my confidence. And so from then on, I feel like I was given the right tools to succeed in all of my classes. And I think that sometimes I also kind of suffered the like imposter syndrome or whatever that is called. I like couldn't believe that I was back in college and doing so well. But I think that the turning point and what really led me to that was getting my counselor and those professors that pointed me towards the ambassador program. And so when I joined the ambassador program, I worked very closely with some amazing people like Joe Cassio. He's in the building right now, so thank you so much. Also Kimonti, amazing people. I feel like they really helped me with my confidence as a student, because that's, again, I keep saying that over and over, and I feel like oftentimes like we're not aware of our abilities, and we have these anxieties that kind of prevent us to really giving our all in school. And so I feel that the ambassador program has really helped me as a practice public speaking, and not just that, but also like facilitate workshops and build my confidence. Finally, I would like to say that I started college with a low 2.0 GPA. For me, that was very low because I knew that every year it seems like college is getting more and more competitive, and I knew that that wasn't going to cut it. But with all the support that I received, I raised my GPA to a 3.82, and I would have like never imagined that my GPA would have been that high. Yeah. And honestly, I think that it's been really hard work, but it's been very worth it. And I think that one of the major contributing factors to my success as a student is that those professors and those counselors that took the time to get to know me and know my story and get to know me individually, I think that it really makes a difference for you guys to get to know our names, our goals, and our backgrounds. And yes, that is my story.
Thank you, Kristen. Thank you so much for your insights, your perseverance, and your leadership on the board. Each of the other three panelists have prepared a brief presentation about the work of their institution to facilitate intersegmental pathways. And we're going to start with you, President Clark. West Hills College Lemoore was just named one of the 150 colleges eligible for the Aspen Prize, so congratulations, quite an honor. So tell us about your college and your work on intersegmental pathways.
Sure, great. Thank you, Linda. And great job, Kristen, by the way. Fantastic. So West Hills College Lemoore is a small rural college. We're located here in the Central Valley. We have about 7,000 head count, primarily Hispanic, Latinx population. Our district covers about 3,500 square miles, which is enormous. Students have issues with transportation, and of course finance is a barrier as well. We are an OER, Open Educational Resource Institution, and over 50% of our courses are zero textbook costs. We've been trying to do everything, yes, thank you, to remove those financial barriers for students. So two of the problems that we were trying to address that I'm going to talk about today are, one, we wanted to make sure that students got onto the right path prior to registration. So that's especially important with our math pathways now, which is part of our AB 705 work. If students get on the wrong math pathway from the get-go, they lose about a year. So this was critical for us. And the other is to look at achievement gaps. In particular, at West Hills College Lemoore, we're looking at an achievement gap in our male Latinx population. So with the first strategy, what we wanted to do, because we are small and rural, I call us, we have very limited resources, and so we needed to look for creative ways to build upon existing relationships and partners and systems that are already in place. So what we did was we created a dual enrollment course. It's a career planning class. It's 1 unit, it's 6 weeks, online, open educational resources, and it's pass, no pass. And the intention of that was to help students not only identify a major, but a very succinct career path. And at the end of that course, they actually rate themselves on their confidence level in the career path that they've chosen. And we built that in, we piloted it. I'll talk a little bit about the data in a moment from what we've done in our pilot. But we also built upon the CCGI, which is the California College Guidance Initiative. And some of our high school partners were using this tool. So we said, well, you know, our K-12 partners have been doing a great job of career advising for years. And we at the collegiate level have kind of ignored that. Because what we do when they get to us is say, hey, let's start career planning all over again, right? So we said, well, how can we build upon that? So we've been using that as a tool. And finally, we are part of the Tulare Kings Collaborative. I think we have a lot of our partners here in the room today. And that is one of the strategies that we built into a K-12 Strong Workforce partnership, was to implement that across the collaborative. So with our pilot in our career planning class, we ran a small cohort in the spring. And I'm happy to say it is small, the data, the N is small, but 100% of our students have stayed within at least the same meta major. So we got them onto the right math pathway in our pilot. We've scaled that up this fall. We have 162 students going through with different high schools, and you can see the breakdown there. So these students will enroll in those math pathways this coming spring. So having that information ahead of time is helpful to make sure they get onto the right track. You can go ahead and advance. Thank you. The second strategy is a holistic case management approach. And so this was really to address all of our achievement gaps, but in particular, we're looking at that male Hispanic Latinx population. And so what we've done at West Hills College Lemoore is we have identified every single person on the campus as a retention coach. This is not just the obligation of our counselors and our academic advisors, but it is the responsibility of all of us. And so in order to make that happen, what we did was we democratized the data. What does that mean? Well, what that means is we opened up access to data across our entire institution to all faculty, including our part-time faculty, administrators, frontline staff, and of course counselors and advisors who have always had this data. The data includes things like academic history, and it includes real-time academic progress and achievement across the board of all the classes that our students are taking. It shows what resources the students are connected to, and it also is a shared note-taking system so that we can make sure we're doing 100% wraparound support for our students. I know people get really shocked when I say this. We did a lot of preparatory work for this, a lot of conversations around bias and checking that at the door to make sure that we're using data for good. So this has been a great tool. And then some of our data, as a result of some of our holistic case management approach, we have eliminated the 5% gender gap we had for transfer English completion within 1 year. We've increased success for Hispanic students and eliminated the gap between Hispanics and white non-Hispanic students for English completion within 1 year. And we have eliminated the gender gap for fall-to-fall persistence as a result of that. So we're really proud. This is preliminary work, but I think the methods have been really great, and I'm hearing a lot of positive things from our faculty and staff as a result of that.
Thank you. Such a really impressive work using data to inform the student experience and also the full college engagement in student success. Principal Talon, there's quite a buzz around the state about the work that you're doing to engage students in college pathways starting in the 9th grade. So tell us about it.
Yeah, so just a little bit about Wasco. If you're not familiar with Wasco, Wasco is about 30 miles to the north of Bakersfield. It's a community of about 27,000. The school, one comprehensive high school in the community. We have roughly 78% of our students are socioeconomically disadvantaged. It's largely Hispanic, roughly 92%. And about 20% of our students are English language learners. So that's the general makeup of our community and our high school. And when we set out on this journey, it's now been about 6 years ago, two of the biggest challenges that we faced were in the pathway design, the course schedule, and then also the really belief or lack of belief in whether or not high school students could be successful with the rigor of a community college course beginning in the 9th grade. And so that lent itself to a solution that really tackled both of those things at the same time. We have it's actually the next slide, I'm sorry. Okay. We have a course schedule that allows students to, in a blocked schedule, take community college classes. Typically, they're taking one class their freshman year, 2 classes their sophomore year, and junior year, and then 3 classes their senior year. And in those courses, they go 2 times a week for roughly 2 hours a day, so that aligns to about 2 high school periods. And when they're not in those classes, they're working directly with Wasco high school teachers in a support model really for the rest of the week. So where a community college student might go to that class for an hour and a half, 2 times a week, the high school student is doing that, and then when they're not in that class, they're working directly with the high school teacher. The high school teacher oftentimes will go in and push into the community college course so that they're aware of what's going on and they're able to better support that class. Beyond that, you have to let go of some of the fears as a high school principal that you might typically have if you say, well, what's a high school student going to do if the class ends early? Or what do you do if they're done at 2:15 and the other students are done at 3? We put parameters and protocols in place where the parents agree to release them, and we treat them much like a college student with that schedule. Secondarily, what I would say for us that's been a key part of our success is ensuring that the resources are in place to support the students as they take community college classes. We have 2 full-time coordinators that support the work and coordinate the work both with Bakersfield College and with the students. And I can't say enough about the work that they do on a daily basis and how it lends itself to the success. The program coordinator coordinates directly with Bakersfield College when it comes to the courses, how the professors are assigned, how textbooks are to be purchased and delivered to students, and that's a key component of this. If that falls to an administrator, it can get done, but it could also probably fall through the cracks with the busyness of the day. Secondarily, we have a student achievement coordinator assigned just to our program, and that student achievement coordinator is on a 6-period release, and he monitors the work of those students really weekly to ensure that they're on the right track. And I maybe should have mentioned this before, to paint the picture of our program, we have about 70 kids each year that go into our academy. Roughly half go into an ag business pathway, and roughly half go into an ag mechanics pathway. Each year we add 70. And so we have typically at this point about 250 students that are enrolled in the program. So the management of those students is really key to the work of those coordinators. As far as success, we last year had our high school graduation on May 29th. 3 weeks prior, we had 45 students that after 4 years of being in these 2 pathways graduated from Bakersfield College prior to graduating from Wasco High School. The vision for this, again, 6 years ago, it was a partnership with the wonderful company and Bakersfield College, and it really is changing lives in the Wasco community. It's breaking down the barriers that do exist when you live 30 miles away, and transportation to a community college might be an issue as an 18-year-old, and it's really giving that access to the student 4 years earlier and setting them on a path to success. Interestingly, we have about, as I said, 70 openings a year in the Ag Academy, And we're now up to about 180 applicants, and I have people that are constantly asking me about the program and how they can get their student in. Kids are advocating for themselves, which is amazing as well. And it's just, I'm incredibly thankful to Bakersfield College and also the other partners like Wonderful that have helped make this possible for Wasco High students.
Thank you. What a remarkable example of how education can transform communities. Thank you so much. Dr. Bennett, Clovis Community College, one of our newer ones, has been hard at work, and I know you recently earned some recognition from the Campaign for College Opportunity for your high ADT rate. Tell us about the work you're doing there and how you're working, I think, as early as 9th grade to improve ADT completion and also transfer.
Thank you. So first I have to start with a shout out to Bakersfield and Bakersfield College. I grew up in Bakersfield and graduated from high school here. So being on a panel back in my town is just such an honor. I wouldn't have thought that way back when. So, but I started my career in education, teaching as a part-time faculty member up in the state of Washington, and then spent 20 years at Moore Park College as a faculty member and moving up until moving to Clovis Community College, and I've now been the president there for 4 years. We, as you mentioned, we're one of the newest colleges. We're in our 5th year as a college, and it's also one of the fastest growing in the state. We had about 7,000 students in 2012, and now we're up to about 13,000 students this year. And so, I want you to keep that in mind as I talk about this project that we've been implementing over the past decade and the successes that we've had despite all the changes that we've gone through as a college. Our students, Clovis Community College has a diverse student population that really represents the communities that we serve, Clovis and Fresno, and with nearly half of our students enrolled identifying as Latinx. So our strategy that I wanted to share with you was an intentional alignment of our English curriculum to address transfer level English and math readiness and completion by the end of 1st year. So the very first step that we focused on was curriculum alignment. This project started about a decade ago while we were still a center under Reedley College, but as students were coming to the campus, there was a huge gap in student readiness. And so the conversations went on why. And so we started by convening our English faculty with the high school teachers from one of our main feeder high schools to look at instruction and curriculum. And what we found was that instruction at both places was great, excellent, but it went like this. And so the high schools were teaching one thing, and we were teaching another thing. And through the conversations of the faculty, they were able to align so that the high school instruction and curriculum fed into the student learning outcomes and the expectations for college. And as a result, then, students were coming to Clovis Community College more prepared to transition either from high school to our college or straight to a four-year university. Clovis took that alignment work a step further and structured a dual enrollment program where students have an opportunity to really take what is our English 1A and using the data and looking at the students, we made 2 pathways. Right now we have one pathway for the stronger students where they can take 1A in the fall and 1B in the spring, and by the end of their senior year have a full year of college level English completed. For those who need a little more support or a little more time, there is now a high school sort of preparatory English course that they take in the fall, and then they can take English 1A in the spring. So in either case, students are getting through English 1A by the time they graduate. What this did was moved us at the beginning of this from about a 33% rate of students placing into English 1A to over 90% placing into 1A, and that was way before the implementation of AB 705. But it was not as simple as just tossing out a couple of dual enrollment courses. It required intentional curriculum alignment. It required a little bit of money because there was non-instructional dollars assigned to our English faculty to work with high school faculty and for high school faculty to be able to step out of the classroom. There was a little seed money to organize, and then we still have a faculty member who is sort of an overseer who works with the high school faculty to make sure that our curriculum continues to align as time goes on. We believe that this is scalable and sustainable because we've proven that we started with one school about 10 years ago, and now it's expanded to all the high schools in this district. And our success rate, as you can see by this chart, where we started with our pilot with about 30 students, and now we have about 450 to 500 students in this program, we've maintained almost 100% success rates of students moving through this program. And now, as of this year, Clovis Community College is starting to replicate this model with our math program, starting again with one particular high school and we chose the one with the highest demonstrated need for this pilot. And then we're replicating steps number 1 with the curriculum alignment and number 2 with the dual pathway. And then this time we're adding one more thing, which is sort of a summer jumpstart. It's a one unit dual enrollment program, similar to, I think, the other one that we heard about, where the students are taking this course between their junior and senior year, and the purpose of this course really is to support the transition from high school to community college with the confidence that Christian talked about, because a lot of our students don't believe that they belong in college, and part of this was to help them build their self-confidence and their sense of belonging. And so with our pre and post data from our first pilot from this last summer, we saw that worked extremely well with students believing at the end that they really could go to college. To end, I'd like to say that I really believe in this project that we've been doing. Although we're one of the newest in the state as community colleges, I believe we've already established ourselves as a leader in academic excellence. This is where I now feel a little braggy, and I'm sorry. But right now, Clovis Community College is the #1 community college in California for the number of transfers to UCs and CSUs based on our size per 1,000 students. We received award last night for #1 in associate degrees of transfer awards relative to campus size. We're #1 in the state of California, and this is my favorite, for the fewest units earned or accumulated for receiving a degree. We're actually lower than the state bar. And I know part of that is this alignment project that we have. We have high retention rates for all our student demographics. And we've also been acknowledged, as I said, 2 years in a row by Campaign for College Opportunity as a champion for higher education. And in 2018, we actually were a bellwether finalist for this particular project. So thank you very much for listening. We're just very proud of our work. I'm honored to be here.
Thank you so much. It's so impressive and so exciting. Thank you. Before we turn to questions with the audience, I'd just like to give you a chance, Christian, to react, if you want, to anything you've heard from the podium. What as a student struck you as particularly helpful?
I just have to say that I'm really impressed with all the hard work that you guys are doing, and I think that for students like myself, I feel that if I would have had that help, I would have been a lot more confident from the get-go. Because it seems like a lot of times, or I felt like I could kind of get gridlocked, like I can't really move forward, like I try to go one direction and then it's like, wait a minute, like no, you can't do this, or you need this additional classes, and so on. But I would like to add too, and I don't know if it's possible, for example, like right now at Porterville College, we have this PC Promise program, and I know that it's for students that are just getting out of high school, but I don't know if there would be like a way to implement this with the case management approach, such as the one in West Hills, where you can have students maybe serve as an ambassador or kind of like a peer for like a mentor. Because I've noticed that in my position that I've been doing now, I feel like students are more likely to open up to other students and just share their challenges and their fears, whatever they have, with students over faculty a lot of times, because sometimes we do get a little intimidated. I wish we didn't, but I'm being honest. And I thank all of you guys for this opportunity and for listening to me. And I hope that you guys can provide me with some feedback, and thank you guys.
Thank you. So we do have a little time for questions, both from the audience and also from those that are joining us virtually, to be able to ask questions of the panelists. We do have a few things that we want to ask you as you do this, and this will be the case for each one of the discussion segments going forward today. One, we have a roving microphone, so if you want to ask a question, raise your hand and the microphone will find you, and I'll also be trying to scan to see you. Speak directly into the microphone in consideration of all hearing abilities, and to be sure that our interpreters can translate your question. Share your name and organization, and just ask a brief, direct question. We know you may have lots of things you want to tell us about or discuss, but we would encourage you to use that commentary at your table, share it on social media, or join CLP, the Career Ladders team, in the lobby to create a video or post your thoughts. So let's get started.
This message is for Dr. Bennett. This is Paul Chavez from Delano. Dr. Bennett, I have a question. You mentioned you expanded your English to all schools in the district for the B1A / B1B in your second program you said you had. Are all schools in the district, do they all have qualified master prepared teachers to teach those classes, or how are you doing that?
Yes, they do. They all have master's degrees, and I'm looking at my English faculty member over here who's nodding her head. Yes, that's an absolute criteria for this program.
Good morning. How are you? My name is Marissa Marquez, and I'm addressing questions from the live stream. And we've got a question from Chris. This question is directed at Clovis Community Colleges, or Community College. And the question is, the dual enrollment summer course that you were referring to with the juniors and senior high school students moving through, is this a student development course?
Yes, it's along the lines of a career course or a student success course, where it actually has full curriculum for that. Built into that is study skills and the different techniques for how to make sure you hit the ground running when you come to college. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
And it's also fully transferable, says the dean of that program.
So this is a message, or sorry, this is a question for Dr. Clark. You talked about democratization of data. Exactly how much information does a faculty member or program coordinator have about particular students? And if they're able to see granular information from Civitas, I assume that's the system, how did you get permission to do this from Student Services, Institutional Research, and others? I'm sorry, and I'm Paul Wickline from College of the Canyons.
Sure. So that's a great question. It's a question we get asked all the time. So, what we have historically used as a foundation for restricting data in our systems of higher education has been FERPA, the Family Education Right to Privacy Act, right? But what FERPA says is if you have an educational need to know, then that information can be released. Who on my campus does not have an educational need to know to support our students? In addition to, yes, right. So, in addition to getting past that FERPA issue, we also talked about bias, like I mentioned earlier. We did a lot of seed planting conversations around what does it mean when you get the privilege to access this data, and it is a privilege, and we talk about that all the time. So there were a lot of conversations about that. The other thing is meeting our students where they are at. So our students today, they are very used to using technology. They are on their phones, they are checking in, they are saying they're eating a donut at Starbucks, they're here, they're there, right? So we all know where they're at all times. It's very different from the level of privacy that we expect as older adults. And so for our students, it's almost offensive when we don't share data, because they walk from one building to the next and they have to start their story all over again. And they look at us and say, hey, Amazon knows more about me than you do. So come on, right? So we've got to start changing the narrative here, and that's where the conversations went, and that's how we got to this place.
Okay, raise your hands high so we can see you.
Good morning. Again, Marissa, with another question from the live stream. One question here is actually directed towards our community colleges partners here on stage. In what capacity and how is the counseling center or departments affecting success and change on your campuses for your students?
Well, our counseling and advising are critical. They always have been. They're very important to the work that we do, especially in our pathway work. They're the most knowledgeable on our articulation agreements. They work collaboratively with our K-12 counselor partners, and those relationships are extremely important. But again, what we've done to really expand the idea of a retention coach is not because our counselors and advisors weren't doing that crucial work. It's because our ratios are too big. And if in a perfect world, I'd have a 1-to-5 ratio, but I can't afford that. So I can't hire 50 more counselors. So we had to figure out a way to really start to wrap around those services. So what we've seen with the case management approach now is that our counselors are getting more intel from our faculty members who are on the front line with students, who are often giving them a lot of detailed information about what's going on with them in their lives. Counselors can't see students every single week, but faculty do. So sharing this information has been extremely helpful. So our counselors and advisors are a critical hub to that work that we're doing.
And I would just add, our success rates are not from just one thing, right? The English alignment is one piece. You've got amazing faculty in the classroom, you've got staff on the front lines, but our counselors are in the center of all of our conversations, doing everything, and play a huge role in that the pathway of meeting with our students and really working with them to make sure that the courses that they're taking, especially at the beginning, cover enough different areas in all the A and G and do you want to go here or do this or that, that they aren't getting down the road and saying, oh, I just took 3 classes I didn't need. That is an amazing strength that our counselors are bringing to our completion rates and programs at our school.
Principal Talon, did you want to add anything about supports that you're offering?
Yeah, counselors in a couple different roles at the high school level have been key. The traditional counselor for both the academic and social emotional support is definitely touching the kids in our program. But we also have, I mentioned leveraging resources, the student achievement coordinator that is the one that is really working with the granular data and really making sure that the supports that we have in place are aligned to the individual needs of the student. So a couple of examples, if a student in our program starts struggling in math, that student achievement coordinator is tracking that data weekly. He will assign that student to a lunchtime tutoring session until that grade improves, or even an after-school full-time period. It's a 7th period at Wasco High School until the grade is improved. And if that takes the entire semester, then the student stays in that support for the entire semester. But it's that real-time data that allows the student achievement coordinator that's working as a counselor to align the support immediately when the struggle begins that has been a real key for us.
I'm sure there are additional questions, but we're out of time for this panel. So first of all, I want to thank you for your engagement, and let's thank the panel for such